Hey, welcome to Bleav in Clemson Football with Levon Kirkland. I'm Will Vandervort. We hope you guys had a fantastic Thanksgiving and you had a good time with your family and everyone. Levon, I want to ask you before we get off the bat, happy Thanksgiving, buddy. What did you do and how? And I'm sure it was a good time for all.
Yes, it was. I went to my niece's home, and she lives around the Aiken area.
Mm-hmm.
And there was my two other sisters, her family, and we had a great time.
Nice.
The dog was there. I got to hang out with my really young nephews and nieces. Like I call them my great nieces and nephews, and we had an amazing time. Great time.
That's awesome. Yeah, me and my brother, we had our neighbors over for the watch football and stuff, and we had turkey and everything, all the dressings and stuff. My family's so scattered out. My brother Kevin lives up here in Clemson, but everybody else lives in like my sister Erica lives in Oklahoma. My brother Eric lives in Florida.
Wow.
My other sister Jackie, she lives in Seattle. So they're all spread out all over the world, the United States, I should say. And so it's, it's kind of hard sometimes to do Thanksgiving with my family and all because we're so spread out. But, everybody else was my brother Kevin's here, and we were able to host, and we had a good time with that. And that's what I like about, the holidays is if you have some family around, you can always find a way and other friends and stuff to come over to hang out and just have a good time and fellowship, man. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and Thanksgiving is not as stressful as Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little stressful for the people who are cooking, of course, because I never cook for Thanksgiving. But Thanksgiving is basically about family, relaxation, and football.
Yeah.
You're really not doing – that's all you're doing. You're just going to eat. You're going to hang out with family. And for your family and my family, we're going to watch football.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's what we do. We're going to talk football today. Got a lot of it to talk about. Obviously, we're going to talk about Clemson's big win over the Gamecocks 16-7 as the Tigers are, set the record straight, put everything back in motion. Everything's normal again. Clemson is, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and that big win 16-7. We'll talk about bowl possibilities. All ACC team was announced today. We'll talk about that. There's some news and notes surrounding the Clemson football program. We'll mention those as well. Clemson women are playing in the Final Four this weekend. So that's big news for the Clemson women's soccer team. The men are in the Elite Eight. They are hosting Stanford this weekend with a chance to go to the Final Four. So good luck to them also. And then, of course, Clemson basketball tonight here in a couple of hours as we're recording this show. For those that are maybe listening to us on podcast, as we're recording this, the Clemson basketball team will be playing tonight at 9:30 against Alabama in the ACC SEC Challenge, and so that's going to be a big game. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of stuff to go over. Before we do all that, I want to go ahead and thank my sponsors, and we'll begin with the Clemson Insider. We appreciate Robert and the crew each and every week allowing us to use the platforms over at the Clemson Insider Facebook and on YouTube. We appreciate that, and Twitter. You can also find us on Levon's Facebook page and on my Facebook page and also on my Twitter page and Levon's as well. So we want to say, like I said, thanks to the Clemson Insider, the most complete coverage of Clemson athletics and recruiting. We appreciate them doing all that they do. So go on over and check out the Clemson Insider for all the stories. You'll find my content over there as well, my stories and columns from the South Carolina game and moving forward. We've got some news and notes I'm going to go over in a minute that you can also find on that page as well. So go over to the ClemsonInsider.com and check it out today. We also want to say thanks to Tip It Back Sports Grill, the place to be to watch all your college football action this season. Tip It Back Sports Grill is located at 215 Pelham Road in Greenville, South Carolina. So go check out them. And also want to give us a shout out to Tim Cinco and his family. Me and Levon are praying for you, buddy. They have some family issues going on right now, and so we just want to let them know that we are thinking about them. And then also we want to give a shout out to BetOnline, our sponsor from the beginning. BetOnline has been with us from the beginning, and the holiday season, as you know, is off and rolling. And with the NFL in full stride and the NBA, NHL hitting midseason form, BetOnline is the place to be. BetOnline is your number one destination for all your sports wagering information. With up-to-the-minute sports wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions, BetOnline is the top spot for everything pro and amateur sports. So head on over to betonline.com today, and you can, AG today, and you can check out their Big Four. BetOnline also has available at your fingertips with both the desktop and the mobile access at any time for almost any sport that is played, from MMA to international soccer. So head on over to BetOnline today, and remember to use the promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Again, that's BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. And we want to also, as I mentioned earlier, Back Sports Grill, located at 215 Pelham Road in Greenville, South Carolina, is the place to be all football season. It is the place to be this week with the conference championship games in the NFL. So if it's college football you want to watch, go over to Tip It Back Sports. It'll have all the big games from around the country on their mini TVs. They'll have the ACC and the SEC championship games going on, so go check that out. If it's the NFL you want, Tip It Back Sports Grill has all the Sunday games, and they are home for mine and Levon's Pittsburgh Steelers action. They are the Pittsburgh Steelers bar in the Greenville area, so go check that out as well. If you're a Steelers fan, trust me, you're going to love it. They have a big place for the Steelers fans every Sunday there. You need to go check them out and watch the games there if you can. So Tip It Back Sports Grill is located at the Commons in Pelham and is open 7 days a week. On Monday, they have trivia night with Monday Night Football. They also have karaoke and live music throughout the week. Every Saturday is, of course, designated to college sports. Also now college basketball is in play. And then Sundays are designated for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the NFL. So go over and see Tim Seco and his team over at Tip It Back Sports Grill, located at the Commons in Pelham. Tip It Back Sports Grill is the place to be for all your college football action this season. And so, Levon, we got a little bit of news, and we want to talk about, and we'll just get things started. I'm sure some Clemson fans know about it by now, but as you see, Clemson middle linebacker Jeremiah Trotter announced today that he's declaring for the 2024 NFL Draft. The Clemson Insider has learned that Trotter also elected not to participate in the Tigers bowl game. We don't know where that destination will be. We'll find that out on Sunday, but Trotter has already said he's going to opt out of the bowl game. The 6', 230-pound linebacker played in all 12 games for Clemson during the regular season, all starts. He ranks first on the team in total tackles with 87, tackles for loss with 14.5, and sacks with 5.5. He also recorded 2 interceptions, including a pick 6 against Notre Dame. He had 5 passes broken up, 10 quarterback hurries, and 2 forced fumbles. His quote was on this is what he posted on Instagram today. He says, "After long thought and prayer, I'm officially announcing that I'm declaring I'm taking the next step in a lifelong dream and declaring for the 2024 NFL Draft. I will always be a Clemson Tiger. Go Tigers." Trotter earned second-team All-American honors from the Associated Press in 2022, and this season he became the 6th Butkus Award finalist in Clemson history. Of course, joining that guy right there on the other side is one of those finalists, Levon Kirkland. The NFL legacy entered the season credited with 114 tackles, 14.5 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks, 7 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. So Jeremiah Trotter, Levon, no surprise, I don't think, for either one of us. But obviously I know pretty disappointing news for Clemson fans because I'm sure they were hoping he would hang around for a little while.
Yeah, of course so. I mean, you want your best players to play to the very end. You do. You want them to play all the way to their senior year and play in the bowl game. But the trend is, for the most part, if you're not playing for the national championship, most guys who are going to be going to the NFL are opting not to even play in the bowl games. And at one point in time, yes, that wasn't a fact. Guys played throughout no matter what. But it's a new day and time, and you can understand that he doesn't want to get an injury or anything like that in a bowl game. He has an opportunity to do something that he's been dreaming of doing, following in his father's footsteps. Mm-hmm. I think as a coach, you got to just wish him luck, especially when they did everything they're supposed to do especially if they're on track to graduate. Are they graduating? I think the only thing you do as a program is to really wish them well, and continues to keep that good relationship with them. So if you're a fan out there, make sure you get on your social media, and any of our guys that are leaving, wish them good luck,
Mm-hmm.
because those guys really, and especially our defense of late, the last 4 games, they really played well. And a matter of fact, I think our defense played well enough where we should have probably been undefeated.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Dabo's
So
not wrong when he says that. No,
he's absolutely positively on point when he says that his defense played well enough where they could have went undefeated, and that's true.
right.
That's probably one of the best defenses I've seen at Clemson in quite some time, and our defenses have been good over the last few years. But this defense, I'm telling you, I don't know if our defense played this well in the last 4 games in the last couple of years. I mean, this defense has been tremendous, getting at the ball, making things happen. And boy, they really played well against the South Carolina Gamecocks this past Saturday.
They did. And there's going to be some more news coming later in the week, so keep a lookout for that. I'm not going to say who that is yet. We'll let those players make that announcement when they want to. But just be close to your computer, be close to your phone. Go to the Clemson Insider if you want to find out the information. But there'll be some more announcements later this week on what players plan to do going forward with their future at Clemson, whether it be going to the NFL or maybe entering the transfer portal. There's going to be a lot of news going on here the next few days. So, keep your eyes on that. Speaking of the transfer portal, Clemson did have one player today that jumped into the transfer portal, and that is backup quarterback Hunter Helms, originally a walk-on the program, and he spent the last 4 years with the Tigers. He's now headed to the transfer portal. He announced on Twitter, or X, I should say on X, formerly of Twitter, this afternoon. Helms played in 9 games over his Clemson career, finishing with 23 completions for 218 yards and 2 touchdowns. He now will be looking for a new home in college football. Levon, not surprised by this news. We heard a lot of talk coming out of camp as the season was winding down that Hunter Helms was probably going to go ahead and want to go somewhere, maybe to a smaller school where he can become a starter. When you look at like maybe Georgia State or Georgia Southern or somebody like that, where he can go and compete and be a starter and try to just get himself out there a little bit. And we kind of wish him well, and I think he'll do a good job wherever he goes.
Yeah, you shouldn't have a problem with a guy like Hunter saying that, hey, I want to be a starter at a level and play college football and be the guy. I don't really blame anybody for thinking that. I mean, that's what you're really supposed to think. You're really supposed to be that competitive. So I really totally get that, and I wish him well. I really do. And I think that's, like I said, nowadays, I think if you're a coach, man, only thing you can do is just encourage those guys. You may not always like it, but just encourage them, man. You just never know what could happen. Hunter could come back and be a great donor for the Clemson Tiger program. Jeremiah could do the same thing. You don't want to diss these guys, and you don't want fans to be like, you guys suck, you should stay with Clemson. Come on. That's not true. These are young men who are doing well, great young men, people
got
that you would introduce, got the degrees, people that you would introduce your daughter to.
They're wearing that Clemson ring just like you are, right?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you support them?
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't you support them? So, as I said before, make sure you support these guys. Make sure you wish them well, because they put it on the line each and every day. And sometimes people don't understand the 5:30 workouts, the other things they have to do in college, all the distractions that go on now. You got to give these guys their flowers. You really do, because it is a tremendous task to be a student athlete.
It really is. It is. Speaking of the task of being a student athlete and playing and excelling at a high level, we had, as you see, 8 Clemson players were named All ACC today on Tuesday with, earning recognition, at the annual squads by the conference. Clemson has produced at least 8 conference selections in each of the last 9 years and in 12 of the last 13 seasons. This year, 3 players, defensive tackle Tyler Davis, linebacker Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and cornerback Nate Wiggins collected first-team honors. Linebacker Barrett Carter was named to the second team, and 4 players, tight end Jake Brenningstool, offensive tackle Blake Miller, center Will Putnam, and defensive tackle Rook Ororo, garnered third-team recognition. 7 other players qualified for a combined 8 honorable mentions. By the way, Tyler Davis is selected. His selection is the 4th of his career, placing him in a select company in school history. He joins Travis Etienne, who had 5, C.J. Spiller, who had 5, Nelson Welch, who had 4, Levon's former teammate, and Mitch Hyatt, who also had 4, are the only players in school history to collect at least 4 All-ACC selections. Davis, who is Clemson's record holder for career starts by a defensive player with 51, becomes the first defensive player in Clemson history to earn 4 All-ACC honors. So congrats to him for that honor and for all those guys, all 8 of those guys, Levon, for earning All-ACC honors and getting the recognition they deserve.
Oh, yeah, that's a big-time accomplishment. You're talking about a Power 5 conference and being first All-ACC or even second All-ACC, man, that's a great honor. It really shows what Clemson is doing as far as producing and developing really good players. You just got to tip your hat off to those guys, man. That's a great honor. It's something that I can tell you from experience. It's something that you always will take pride in. Being nominated All-ACC. That is huge. That is big time. Fortunately, I was there 3 times myself, and it's something that you never, ever forget.
Absolutely. So congrats to all those guys. And congrats also go out to Khalil Barnes and Jonathan Whites. They both were named All-ACC players this week at their respected positions. The Atlantic Coast Conference announced Monday that safety Khalil Barnes was a defensive back of the week, and place kicker Jonathan Whites was a special teams player of the week, as both earned All-ACC Player of the Week honors in those categories for their performance in Clemson's 16-7 win against South Carolina. Barnes posted 4 tackles, 2 passes broken up, a 42-yard fumble return for a touchdown, and 1 interception. Barnes recorded the fumble and the return and the interception on back-to-back offensive plays against the Gamecocks. And those were on the second and third plays of the game. He became the first player at Clemson to record a takeaway on consecutive plays from scrimmage since a guy by the name of Brian Dawkins did it against Duke in 1995. So I know that's I asked Khalil about that after the game, and he was really excited that he was in the same sentence with Brian Dawkins.
No doubt. Yeah.
so congrats to him. Barnes became the first Clemson player with a fumble recovery and an interception in the same game since Dorian O'Daniel did it back in 2017. It also marked the first time a Clemson player had 2 takeaways in a game since Andrew Booth recorded 2 interceptions against the Gamecocks back in 2021 on that same field, by the way. Barnes became the second FBS player and the first FBS freshman to record 3 or more interceptions, multiple forced fumbles, and a scoop and score this season. Jonathan Whites finished 3 for 3 on field goals to account for the final margin of victory in Clemson's 9-point win over its rival. He converted field goal attempts of 50, 49, and 42 yards after entering the evening with a career long of just 41 yards. His 3 field goals of 40-plus yards tied a school record shared by Bob Pauling, who did it against North Carolina in 1982, Nelson Welch, who did it against NC State in 1991, Mark Buchholz, who did it against Wake Forest in 2017, and Chandler Catanzaro, who did it against Troy in 2011. White's career-long 50-yard field goal in the first quarter was Clemson's longest field goal since a 52-yarder by B.T. Potter last year in the ACC championship game. The 50-yarder came in the same stadium as the first 50-yard field goal in Clemson history, and that was a 52-yarder by Eddie Siegler against South Carolina in 1971. And, Levon, I'm going to tell you something. Jonathan Whites is one of those – he goes down in Clemson lore for this game. One of those players that nobody thought would matter in this game. he's the equivalent to Willie Underwood in 1980.
Yes.
Just coming around, the guy you did not expect to be the hero is the hero of the game, and credit to him, man. You talking about pressure kicks? Those were pressure kicks he made, and he nailed them all.
And he nailed them like a 17-year pro football kicker that's going to the Hall of Fame. I mean, watching it from the comforts of my home, I'm thinking, boy, I hope he makes this. I hope he doesn't shake it or whatever. I mean, he was really just comfortable. You can see the confidence oozing out of him on the TV screen. And his kicks were dead on perfect. And you're right, Will. We never expected this.
No.
We never expected this. If you'd have told me that our offense wasn't going to score a touchdown and still won this game, I thought you would have been crazy. But it did happen. And really, our field goal kicker did an awesome job of making some clutch field goals. Really did. I mean, he looked like P.J. Potter from last year.
He did.
You can always count on him to make those field goals. So I'm really happy for that kid because I think he really made a sacrifice to come back. That Florida State game, he missed a field goal that probably would have won the game for the Tigers, but he kept pressing on, and he was there for us at the very end in South Carolina when we really did need him to score those points.
And a South Carolina native, too, it just makes it all that better. He grew
better,
up in Charleston where all those Gamecock fans are at.
Oh, yes.
And he's forever got bragging rights on him, how he personally beat the Gamecocks. Because he did.
To the Cox, yes.
Yes, he did.
And can I also say that I thought Barnes, that play that he made when he scooped and scored, it was so heads up. Because if you look at the other players that were around that play, they didn't even move.
They didn't. Now, I will say this.
Didn't budge. Carter didn't budge. They just kind of all stood there, and he had the presence of mind to just pick up the ball and say, hey, I'm going to take this all the way to the end zone. I'll let the referee decide whether it's a touchdown or not. Turns out it was a huge scoring play for the not for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but for the Clemson Tigers.
And I will say this, an unsung hero on that play was Andrew Makuba, who was playing the ball, and he goes to tackle Leggett.
Yes.
And because he played the ball, Leggett couldn't get out of the grasp of his tackle to go get it because Leggett knew it was a fumble, and he tried to go back and get it, and he couldn't, and that allowed Khalil to pick it up and run to take it to the house.
And I got to also say, I'm telling you, man, our secondary did an excellent job of tackling the wide receivers from South Carolina, because the only way that the South Carolina Gamecocks were going to beat Clemson is that they got the big play. And our DBs did a heck of a job. And you got to understand, most of these guys are freshmen. And they did a great job of really getting in their faces, man, and making them earn every catch. And then when they did make the catch, they put some hits on them. Like Leggett basically wears shorts out there, which I'm like, man, you got to be careful exposing your knees like that.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of times, even when I was in the NFL, you're not wearing the heavy pads or anything like that. But, man, how he was getting hit. And they kind of knocked one of the guys, I forgot, number 1 for South Carolina, the tight end. They kind of knocked him out of the game.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, he's wearing practice gear.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of unique. I haven't really seen a lot of players.
You know what I call it? I don't call it unique. I call it not being very smart, because you need to protect your knees.
Yeah, and especially nowadays, because they don't want to, really a lot of guys they don't want to target guys. They don't want to hit them up above. So
they're going to hit low.
They're going to hit low now. If I'm an offensive player, I think I'd rather for them to hit me high than to hit me low like that.
Me too.
I know people talk about concussions, targeting, things of that nature. But if I was an offensive player, I beg the defense, please hit me up high.
Mm-hmm.
Please hit me up high, because you can see, man, one hit, one twist of that leg, and you're out for the year. Especially him, Leggett, because that dude has an opportunity to be a first round pick.
Yep.
He's fortunate that hit didn't really delay his draft status.
Yeah. And real fast, one more piece of news, Levon, before we get into the Clemson Carolina game. Former Clemson wide receiver / quarterback Chancey Stuckey has parted ways with Notre Dame. Stuckey spent the last 2 seasons as the wide receivers coach for the Fighting Irish prior to being hired by Notre Dame. In January 2022, Stuckey served as the Baylor receiver coach in 2021. Before that, he was with Dabo Swinney in the Clemson program as a student assistant coach. So Notre Dame and Chancey Stuckey parting ways. Wish Chancey all the best. Maybe we'll see him up here in Clemson again. Who knows? You never know. But he's a good coach, in my opinion. And, I understand, Marcus Freeman's got to do what he thinks best for his program. And it sounds like it was mutual on both parties' parts. So, Chancey Stuckey's going to be coaching somewhere else next year, it looks like. But,
that's surprising.
Yeah, it is.
But you know what? You never know the inner workings of a program. You really don't. You don't really know what's going on as fans, as outsiders. We're outside looking in. And a lot of times you think things are great, they're perfect. And a lot of times they're not. And I don't know if they bump heads or whatever like that. But, man, I like Chancey a lot. I got an opportunity to meet him. He'll bounce back. He'll be okay. And you never know. There's a possibility that he could come to Clemson.
Exactly. And we'll see. We'll see in the next couple of weeks, next month or so, what happens. I'm sure there'll be something that goes on. We know one thing we do know is the coaching carousel. It changes every season, and there's always new coaches that come on staff, not only at Clemson but everywhere else. And there's new head coaches. We've seen it, with what's going on at Texas A&M and all those places here in the last couple months. So, they all got new coaches, and luckily nobody yet has left the Clemson program. But we'll see what happens here the next few weeks. As they move you along, and Dabo talks to the coaches, and they go through that part of the season. But we'll get into that in a few weeks when all that happens and goes down. But right now, we're going to go and look back and review this Clemson win over South Carolina. The Tigers, they improved to 73-43-4 all time in Columbia. Overall in the series. It might as well be in Columbia. Overall, they got 54 wins in Columbia. I think 54-32-3 all time in Columbia is the record now. And by the way, their 54 wins is like almost as much as they have on most teams overall. They got like 60 wins against NC State, and I think they got I think they only got 40 wins against North Carolina. So Clemson's got more wins in Columbia than they do. They got 14 more wins in Columbia than they do overall against the Tar Heels. Now, they played South Carolina more, but still, that's 54 wins in Columbia. Levon, that's amazing that South Carolina has had that much home field advantage in the series, because remember the first 57 years it was played in Columbia.
Yeah.
Every year. And Clemson had a 33-21 advantage in that. And by the way, since I've been 5 years old, Clemson is 18-6 in Columbia. That dates back to 1977. 18-6, Levon. That's just it's laughable. And I know me and you were having a good time joking about it before we got on. So hey, first of all, I don't know if you saw my column. I wrote my column that says that Clemson collected rent, and then I gave you a shout out in the column.
Thank you so much. Yes, because rent is always due when we go to Willie B. And it's so funny that they call it Willie B. Like they're trying to be hip at a place that we have destroyed them all the time. Mm-hmm. As we always say at Clemson, and this is sort of Carolina fans, you can decorate it any kind of way you want to. You can invite anybody you want to. But every time we come there after Thanksgiving, rent is due. Rent is due, and we expect that money right now. Before we leave the stadium, we want our money. And that's what happens. And so I was listening to the radio station here in Columbia, and I think it was the day before the day of the game, and the guys were saying, a lot of people, a lot of commentators, a lot of the media saying Clemson's going to win, but I just don't think that Clemson has ever played in a hostile environment like they're going to see at Willie B at 7:30 tonight. I almost pulled over. I was laughing so hard because I'm thinking, have you guys checked the record books of late, what we have done to the South Carolina Gamecocks? I don't care if it's 7:30. I don't care if it's 1 a.m. in the morning, 2 a.m. in the morning, or 12 o'clock noon. We have smashed you guys every chance we get when we go to Willie B. Matter of fact, I think next year we should play in Willie B, then go to Death Valley. Yeah. Because it's home away from home.
It is. I mean, Clemson has a better record at Williams-Brice than they do in Clemson, it seems like. I mean, it's percentage-wise, it's about the same. I think it's 62% at Clemson against South Carolina, and it's 62% in Columbia. So it's about the same. But still, you're winning 62% of the time at their field. That's hilarious,
It's so funny. That is what other teams does that happen to? It's hilarious because they really think that Willie B is a factor, and it's not.
Yeah,
I've never seen a home field advantage that doesn't work for the home field, for the home team.
Yeah, and to go off of that, Levon, and I told you this before we got on, South Carolina in the last 10 years has a losing record against Power 5 competition at Williams-Brice.
Wow.
So it's just not Clemson they're losing to. They're losing to everybody else, too, that's of Power 5 stature. So that's that's not very intimidating. Now, look, did they have a good crowd there the other day? They did. Not going to lie. It was good. I got a little motion sickness before the game started when they're doing their little towel thing, and they got the din whatever that is, sandstorm it is. But I got motion sickness because the press box moves.
Oh,
it moves the press box, and you could see, like, the water doing this, right in front of me. And I'm like, okay, that's a little too much, So it was rocking. They were doing their thing. They were loud.
Yeah.
And then Khalil Barnes said, "Shut up."
Calm. You know how they say you don't ever want to tell somebody if they're upset or angry to calm down right away? That's exactly what we did.
Even when they scored, it still wasn't as loud because they knew when they scored, they barely scored. And they're like, we're probably not going to score the rest of the night. They knew they weren't going to score anymore.
Well, they really probably should have. It should have been a holding call on that reverse. It should have. They really probably should have never got down there because they called a bogus roughing the passer on Trotter. And I'm like, that's not roughing the passer at all. And then when they did that little reverse, I mean, Capehart, my man, was getting hugged. I mean, the guy had his arms over his shoulders. And the back judge, I'm like, what are you looking at, guy? That's what you're supposed. That's your job, to look for holding. Obviously, you can call holding almost on every play, but when it's obvious holding, you gotta call that.
Absolutely.
And I heard somebody call in talking about, well, the referees. I'm like, first and foremost, they were saying, like, was those ACC referees? Yeah, when you're the away team, the referees from your conference are actually the ones who referee.
Right.
So he was thinking those are ACC referees. I'm like, yeah, they're always going to be ACC referees when we play at Willie B. And it's always
up here.
the SEC referees when they play at Death Valley. So I think a lot of these people were not making really good points. I think that they were just really embarrassed that they got beat down at their home field, and that more importantly, they won't be going to a bowl. And we really owe them for this one because last year we had a winning streak going on at Death Valley for almost 40 something games, 42 games almost. And they were the ones who broke that winning streak. So it serves them right that we stopped them from going to a bowl game.
Yeah.
So they would be home for Christmas.
It's always nice when South Carolina's home for Christmas, right? I mean, let's just call it like it is.
Right.
It's just the world is right when Clemson beats South Carolina and South Carolina's home for Christmas.
It is a better world. It really is. When Clemson beats South Carolina, the world is back in balance again.
It really is.
When we lose to you guys, which isn't very often, it's not quite right. You know, it's like it's not quite right. It doesn't settle into your stomach very well. But when we beat those guys, the world is right again. It really is.
You know, Clemson has not trailed in this series since 1896 or before the 1897 game. They won that game, evened the series up, and then the next year Clemson won 24-0 in 1898. And since then, which is over 45,000 days,
we've been ahead.
Clemson has been ahead of this series, and it's not going to change anytime soon. I can honestly tell you that. Clemson has the ultimate bragging rights for a long, long time.
Yes, no question about that. And it's a glorious thing. It is. I mean, I let some people have it on Facebook. I'm not going to lie. I was a little petty, but they deserve it though, because last year they were giving it to me and my brother, giving it to us, man. Even though I was like, okay, well, you beat us, the first time in like 7 years. Okay, no big deal. But I had to give it back to them. I had to. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you should. So Clemson won, and I put this so eloquently in my column. So Clemson won 13 of the first 17 games in this series. South Carolina did not win back-to-back years for till the rivalry was 25 years old. This is before they won back-to-back years. And then they had a couple good runs there when Coach Howard was there, and they won 4 games back from 51 to 54. It's the only time they won 4 games. And then, of course, we know about the run they had a few years back when they won 5 straight. And that's when it really was out of whack, let's be honest. But Clemson, every time Carolina has had a run like that, Clemson has responded by winning like 4 years in a row right after that, or 7 out of 8, or 8 out of 9, which right now that's the run Clemson's on, 8 out of 9 right now. And, so, it's just funny to watch. Like, so Carolina had that one I told you from 51 to 54 where they won 4 years in a row. And then they won 3 years in a row from 1968 to 70. And then 5 years in a row from 2009 to 2013. And that's it. That's their streaks, right? For Clemson, they won 7 years in a row. Of course, they from 1934 to 40. Of course, they won 3 or 4 years in a row prior to that several times in the series. Then they won 1976 to 78. They won 3 years in a row. From 1980 to 83, they won 4 years in a row. From 1988 to 91, Clemson won 4 years in a row. From 1997 to 2000, Clemson won 4 years in a row. From 2002 to 2005, Clemson won 4 years in a row. And then 2014 to 2022, they won 7 times in a row. So Clemson has done it multiple times over South Carolina. They've owned this series, and it was fun to see, that kind of get back in play. And I thought the way Clemson, Levon, and I know we're going to talk about this because some Clemson fans were very disappointed that Clemson only scored 16 points in this game. And I get it. I understand fans like offense and they like touchdowns. Woohoo. And those things are important. But if you really watch this game, as I'm sure you did, and I know I did, Clemson dominated the lines of scrimmage. They owned the lines of scrimmage. Clemson didn't need to score any more touchdowns or any more points because they were controlling things on both sides of the ball that they could run the football whenever they wanted to and get 4 or 5 yards a pop, and then they were just smothering South Carolina doing anything. I really Bleav Spencer Rattler probably spent at least a couple hours the next day in the massage room and all those fancy things they have in there, to keep him feeling better because, man, he was lit up almost every time he dropped back to pass.
Man, I feel bad for that kid because they really took it to him.
They did.
And Rattler is a guy that he's a streaky guy, and I think it's because of his offensive line. I think he's a quality quarterback.
I do too.
I think he's really mature from what you saw in those earlier days from Oklahoma in high school when he come across as a young punk. I like him. I think he's a scary kind of quarterback, but he had no chance. He absolutely didn't have any chance. And I have to give South Carolina, they were stripping it well. Like, they were doing a lot of eye candy in front of our defense, trying to get eyes to go astray. But, man, our guys were so focused. That front seven played so well. And they really took it to their offensive line. And I know what people are going to say, well, we don't really have a good offensive line. Well, you know what I'm going to say? Well, that's your fault. It's your fault. So
right.
You guys have to work on that. But I love what I saw on the defensive side of the ball from Clemson. And the thing is, we're so young up front. And, yeah, we're going to lose probably Carter and Trotter. But trust me, we got some guys coming. We got some guys coming. And we're going to be in our defensive backfield, I think it's going to be even better next year.
Oh, that might be the best secondary I've ever seen at Clemson. They're just so well coached. Yeah. Their technique, they look like every single one of those guys look like NFL DBs back there. The way they play, how they hit, how they tackle. Yeah.
The tackling display was on. They're not afraid of tackling. They really embrace tackling. And for DBs, a lot of times, man, tackling is probably not their best thing. But I saw our guys really going out there making some explosive tackles. And I'm looking forward to seeing them play next year, how they're going to develop. I think they're going to be even better. I do.
Levon, check this out. Sam Hartman, Haynes, King, Drake May, and Spencer Rattler. All guys they're NFL prospects. All 4 of those guys found out what it's going to be like playing in the NFL against that Clemson secondary.
Oh, no question.
Those are the windows you get in the NFL. They're very tiny windows, and you got to make plays, and you got to be accurate with the ball. And what we found out from all 4 of those quarterbacks, that they're not as accurate when those windows are tiny because every single one of those guys, Levon, were at 70 or 65% completion percentage when they played Clemson. Sam Hartman was held under 50%. Haynes King was held under 50% passing. Drake May was under 50% passing. And if it wasn't for right at the last play of the game for South Carolina, their last offensive play for their wide receiver going down and catching a pass that he was just throwing away on that 4th down.
Right.
Spencer Rattler would have been under 50% passing. Instead, he was 16 of 32. He was right at it. Clemson held those 4 prospects. Clemson's defense held those guys to under 50% passing. I think it was like less than 45% passing. Under 600 yards, 3 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, those 4 quarterbacks.
And it really didn't even look like Spencer Rattler was even that high. For real. He looked like he might have thrown 40% because they were all over him. And you got to give Wes the defense coordinator a lot of credit, especially these last 4 games. He seemed to find a rhythm of what we can do best. And a lot of times you have to know yourself more so than the opponent. But now these guys not only know themselves, but they understand the opponent. They understood that South Carolina, they can hit the big play. And that's what they did. So you cannot sit in a zone concept, especially if Rattler gets a little time, or even if he scrambles, he's going to find the open guy. He's been doing that all year long. Clemson did a great job of making sure that they were man-to-man of those guys. They were going to smother them all day long. They didn't care about Leggett and how he's going to the pros and he's the next coming of Sterling Sharp. They D'd those guys up, and it was almost impossible for Rattler to find any kind of opening. And then when he starts to scramble, those guys were hunting. Those guys were getting after him so well. I remember the last, I guess, the 4th down they had. I mean, it was a sack. It should have been a sack, but he actually got the ball off. But he was under distress all game long. And a lot of times, that's better than always sacking the quarterback.
Oh, it is. And listen, for the naysayers out there, they're like, oh, well, South Carolina's horrible on offense and all that. Yeah, they're horrible at running the ball. We know that, and they have issues on the offensive line. But let's understand, okay, South Carolina was number 3 in the SEC and 15th nationally in passing yards per game. They were averaging almost 300 yards per game through the air. Clemson's defense held them to 112 yards, okay? That is 2 weeks in a row where Clemson has faced a prolific passing attack and held them way under their average. Last week held Drake May to 250 yards. This week you hold Spencer Rattler, who is 4th in the SEC, averaging 293 yards a game through the air and completing 70% of his passes. They held him to 16 of 32 for 112 yards, 1 interception, no touchdowns. He had the worst game. He had a quarterback rating of 79.8, the worst game of his career the other night. So Clemson's defense does deserve credit because that was South Carolina's strength, and Clemson made it look like it was nothing. It made it look like it wasn't even a strength. That's how well they played that South Carolina offense.
Yeah, what I think me and you understand, and guys who really love the game and really watch the game and really are defensive guys, that game was beautiful to me. I'm sorry, man. That game was the kind of game that I was looking for. A game where the defense, in this offensive-driven world, where offenses are making all kind of yardage, you see that defenses are now catching up. They're catching up, and man, to hold a team down to just 1 touchdown is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah, and Levon, you'll appreciate this because in 1989, you guys only gave up 155 yards to the Gamecocks in Columbia in a 45-0 win. The defense this past week, what they did, the 169 yards the Gamecocks had, is the second or is the best since that 1989 defensive performance.
Yeah, it was dominating. I mean, and it reminded me a whole lot of that game. It was like, man, South Carolina doesn't have a chance. I mean, even after they scored at 7, I was like, they're not going to score anymore.
They never got past midfield.
They're not even going to get a field goal.
Yeah.
They didn't attempt a field goal in this game. Do you know how incredible that is in today's football environment?
It's amazing.
It's amazing. It is amazing.
You held a team the last 3 quarters didn't even get past midfield.
Right.
They didn't even get past midfield. Second and third quarters, they had a combined 2 yards.
Right.
2. They had -6 yards in the second quarter. I mean, they couldn't. Their last 9 possessions were 8 punts and then a out on downs. Turnover on downs.
Wow.
8 punts and a turnover down. That was their last 9 possessions in the game. And it was a total domination by Clemson's defense. And Levon, it was so dominating that Dabo Swinney went over to Garrett Riley, and he said this in the press conference. I also saw him do it, and then he confirmed it in the press conference. He went over to Garrett Riley and said, "Stop throwing the ball. We're going to run it. We're going to run it and punt and play defense the rest of the game. That's what we're doing."
We're going Danny Ford.
That's what they did. They went.
We're going back to Danny Ford days.
What did Dabo say? Dabo said it reminded him of 1990s Alabama football. He said, "I thought I was watching when I played at Alabama." But he understands Dabo's an offensive guy, but he understood we don't need to throw the ball anymore. We're just going to run it on them.
Really, it really wasn't any reason to. I mean, because our guys were getting yards on them. And I think if, a play here or there would have worked, we would definitely score on offense. But it was amazing what we did on defense, especially with such a young defense.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you, if you're a Clemson fan, it gives you a lot of hope. It lets you know what an excellent head coach that you do have,
mm-hmm.
and how Clemson's going to bounce back, and how there is a belief in what Dabo Swinney is doing. And I mean, this year started off probably worse than anybody could have ever expected. But I mean, this was a heck of a run of 4 straight games that the Clemson Tigers won. And they won against teams like Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
And they won against teams like North Carolina, who was ranked at that time. And everybody was talking about how great their offense was. And we shut that offense down.
Mm-hmm.
So
and they beat a Georgia Tech team who had a chance to beat Georgia the other night.
Oh, yeah.
They ran Georgia Tech out of the building.
Yeah, we said that Georgia Tech could score points.
Mm-hmm.
We told everybody that. And that Clemson defense did a great job of shutting them down. So that defense, man, that defense is probably one of the best defenses in Clemson history. But they won't go down that way because of an 8-4, and how do you lose 8-4? If your defense is so great, how did this happen? But I'm telling you, this was a really good defense. And they could play with almost anybody that they lined up against. And they did. They really did. They did a fabulous job, really, of keeping Clemson in a lot of the games. So, I mean, you got to tip your hats off to Wes, man. I'm so happy for him. And I'm really happy what I saw Saturday, man, because that was old school football at its best.
It was, and it was good to see. And you saw, and I want to give a shout out to special teams. We talked earlier about Jonathan White's being the unsung hero of the game. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt about that. And I want to also give a shout out to the punter, Aiden Swanson. Yeah. I mean, he had, what was it, 6 or 7 punts inside the 20-yard line, down inside the 20-yard. You know how big that is? How that flips the field, and how that, takes, how that allows the defense to dominate the way Clemson did, because then you can put your ears back, you can go after them, you kind of know what they're going to do because they're inside their 20-yard line. There's only so many plays you can run. So credit to them. And then I do want to credit the offense in a key moment of the game. Remember when South Carolina, 16-7, obviously, in the fourth quarter, early in the fourth quarter, South Carolina moves the ball to midfield. They finally flip the field. They punt Clemson inside their 15. I want to give Clemson's offensive line credit, because on the very next play, Will Shipley goes for like 15 yards up the middle, running through the A-gap. And Clemson then starts just running the ball all the way down the field and ran out most of the clock there before punting it back over to South Carolina. That was a huge play, because if Clemson goes 3 and out there on offense and South Carolina gets the ball back at midfield, it's a different kind of game at that point, right, Levon? I mean, then at that point, yeah, Clemson's defense played great, but they're only 50 yards away to making it a one-score game, either with the field goal or a touchdown. And then it's a different kind of game at the end than what it was. But credit to the offense that everybody was so mad about and didn't like. But I credit that offensive line in that running game, because when they had to have those yards in the key moments, that was a huge moment for Will Shipley to break off that long run and get them out of that dangerous territory. And now they could start doing what they need to do and eat the clock up. Big play, I thought, that nobody really talks about how big that play was after South Carolina just flipped the field for the first time.
No question about it. And really, honestly, okay, we didn't score a touchdown on offense, but I really think we probably could have. Especially at the very
end. They could
end.
At the end. They definitely could have.
At the end, those guys were done.
Mm-hmm.
And trust me, I know when the defense is done. When the defense is like, let's just get out of here, that's what was happening with the South Carolina Gamecocks. That last series, if it wasn't the goodness of Dabo Swinney's heart, if he really wanted to crush Beamer, he could have.
Yeah.
We could have easily scored another touchdown and made it worse than it really was.
I agree.
So for all you Gamecock fans that talking about, well, our defense, really proud of our defense, trust me, if we would just stuck to running the ball, they didn't have a chance, especially in that 3-3-5 that they were trying to run.
Yep.
Let me tell you something. A 3-3-5 is not good if you cannot stop the run. It is not, because now you can just double down all day long. That means you can double team one of the guys, come off to the next level, and get 5 or 6 yards. And we could have honestly did that against him. And he was right. Why throw the ball when we can run down their throats all game long?
Exactly.
So all those people are saying, well, our defense really stood up. Trust me, it wasn't really like that. We just didn't run the ball enough. If we had decided that we were going to throw the ball and we were just going to run the ball, some more points would have came on that board.
I agree. But real fast before we get done, I want to go ahead and give a little bowl info. Okay. I know some people are wondering. We've had some people ask questions, and we've been reading your comments. Here's the situation with the bowl games. Okay, I was told this past weekend that it looks like Clemson's probably going to go to the Holiday Bowl in San Diego, possibly playing either Southern Cal or Oregon State. So it depends on – I think a lot of people are saying it's more Southern Cal than Oregon State. So it looks like Clemson, though, is headed there. Clemson now – I'm not saying it's a definite because things can change. A lot happens under the table with bowl games. A lot happens between bowl games where they make deals amongst each other, because I do know this. The Gator Bowl wants Clemson, and they want Clemson badly. Mm-hmm. They want Clemson, but they're afraid that Clemson won't be around for them. And when their selection comes around, because the Holiday Bowl will come before the Gator Bowl. So if they can make a deal with the Holiday Bowl, maybe that happens. I don't know. ESPN also plays a big role in all these things. And ESPN would love a Clemson, Oregon State, or a Clemson, Southern Cal matchup because of the DJ Uiagalelei situation with Oregon State. Then you got the Riley brothers with, who's the head coach at Southern Cal, with Garrett Riley and Lincoln Riley. So that there's storylines there that they like made for TV, if you will. Now, the Gator Bowl would love a matchup between Clemson and LSU, and I think television would love that as well. Because of the two programs, and they just played for a national championship a few years ago. Mm-hmm. So that's an intriguing matchup as well for the Gator Bowl. But right now, I would say probably 70% chance San Diego, 30% chance Gator Bowl. There is an outside shot for Clemson to go to the WeatherQuest Bowl in Tampa, which used to be known as the Outback Bowl. Right. And they could play LSU there too. But here's the situation with that bowl game. Notre Dame is sitting there, and unless Notre Dame goes to New Year's 6, which I don't think is going to happen, mm-hmm. then Notre Dame is going to go to that bowl game, probably going to play LSU there, and you get a Notre Dame LSU matchup, the Brian Kelly Bowl, if you will, and that's why that would be intriguing for them. So I don't know if Clemson could get it, but if Notre Dame does get into New Year's 6, which they're right on the outside of those, and it could possibly happen, depends on how the college football playoff unfolds here in the next couple of weeks, then that could possibly happen. and then Clemson could land in Tampa because Clemson is probably their second choice. It's a long shot, but they're probably, and the reason they could go there and let people understand because they're like, don't SEC usually go there, or the Big Ten? Go there. Yes, but because Ohio State or a Big Ten school, maybe Penn State or Ohio State, is going to go play in the Orange Bowl, then ACC gets that slot from the Big Ten. So that's how that works there. So we'll see what happens here in the next couple of weeks. But there's the three places Clemson could land. But if I'm a bet man, I'm saying Clemson's probably going to San Diego.
Well, I really don't know, but I think this, though. If you're on anybody's bowl committee and Clemson Tiger, the Tigers are there, you're going to try to probably get the Clemson Tiger because the brand is everywhere, all across the country. And the Clemson Tigers travel well. It doesn't matter what part of the country that you're trying to go to, especially a place like San Diego. You don't think Clemson fans are not – they're going to be there. They're going to be everywhere. And that money is going to generate to whatever city they're going to. So if I'm on a bowl committee, yes, especially the Gator Bowl, you're definitely trying to get the Clemson Tigers because you know the after effects of having a Clemson football program is going to produce for your city and your bowl game. So, yeah, man, people are probably like, oh, man, let's get Clemson. Can we possibly get Clemson? And if the Holiday Bowl has anything to do with it, I'm sure they're going to be Clemson to go.
Yeah, I think so, too. And, Clemson wants to go to the Gator, and the Gator wants Clemson because, Clemson, Levon, you got a great memory of the Gator Bowl for sure.
I love the Gator Bowl. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
And so there's that love there. Nobody's played more in the Gator Bowl than Clemson. And
really? Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so the Gator Bowl Clemson hadn't been there since 2008, and so they would love to have the opportunity because they know that Clemson is on the way back up and that the chances of getting Clemson in the Gator Bowl in the future are going to be slimmer because they feel like Clemson's going to be in the college football playoff and those things, which I think they are too, especially with the playoff going to 12 games. 12 teams. I think Clemson's chances of being in the playoff are even more than they were before. Clemson went to 6 college football playoffs when it's 4 teams. So you got to like Clemson's chances to get in there with 12 on a regular basis. So they know to get Clemson to the Gator Bowl in the future is going to be hard. So this was their opportunity, and they really wanted it to happen. But they don't select before the Holiday Bowl. So unless they can promise the Holiday Bowl something or maybe do something, I don't know. There's some back deal under the table stuff that happens with these bowl games.
So you think that the bowl committees for the Gator Bowl would say like, hey, we'll offer you a deal if you give us Clemson?
Yeah, it happens.
Do they do that kind of stuff?
Really? They do that kind of stuff, yeah.
Oh, yep. That.
And it really happened back in the day when you were playing. That was very normal for that to happen.
Right. Yeah.
Because they would want to make sure they get the team they want and stuff. And so now, but then when they started in the 90s, they started doing similar to what it is now with the selection process where a bowl gets to pick before another bowl. So, they started working out deals because one bowl would want this team and this team would want that bowl. And so, because, look, when I was talking to the person I was the other day, Clemson, they were really disappointed that they're going to the Holiday Bowl. It's not something they're really excited about going to, So if you're the Holiday Bowl, wouldn't you want somebody to be excited about going to your bowl game?
No question about it. No question about it. But
so if you're the Holiday Bowl and you see Clemson's not excited, it's not coming off like Clemson's excited to go to your game.
Yeah.
And first of all, and this kind of goes back to my thing earlier this year, this is why Clemson needs to get out of the ACC, right? Because why in the world has the ACC got a bowl tie-in with the Holiday Bowl to begin with?
That is curious, yes.
Yeah, right. You shouldn't be sending your Southern team all the way over to the West Coast. That's just ridiculous, in my opinion. I don't care who it is. Your Southern team should not be going to the West Coast, and you should take care of your team to make sure they stay regionalized because it's all about the fans' experience too, right? And it's harder to get to San Diego than Jacksonville.
Well,
so
it's always
all these things kind of add up. If I'm the Holiday Bowl, I'm like, do I really want Clemson? Because I know Clemson's not too excited about coming here.
Yeah, but for some reason, I think that the Holiday Bowl is going to pick Clemson. I just do. I don't quote me on that. I mean, I'm not for sure, but I do have a sense that that possibly could happen. And I mean, it's you know, I don't know. I think that I think that through all everything that Clemson went through, man, to win 8 games, I mean, is tremendous because this was a year that many of us really shook our heads. So you probably say, "Hey, we're thankful and humbled to go to a bowl game," because some teams, hint hint, are not going to a bowl game. So to have that, but I can understand your point of view too. It's like, man, can we keep it in the southeast somewhere so we don't have to go as far? So I totally get it. If you're a Clemson fan, you don't want to travel that far. But also, you I think the Clemson fans, no matter what happens, they're going to support their team.
Yeah, and it's also, you know, the 27th, which is 2 days after Christmas, which makes it
Yeah,
even harder.
take the game to tough. Yes,
And where the Gator Bowl's on the 29th, which is a couple days after, so it's a shorter drive. It's a drive, and it's 2 days later. So I think all that kind of plays to the Gator Bowl's favor. But we'll see what happens. Right now, bowl games are fluid. These things could change, but right now it looks like Clemson, I think, is going to the Holiday Bowl. Is what we're thinking. Real fast before we get out of here, Levon. Last week, I went 6-0 with my picks.
What?
First time, yeah, man. I hit them all, man. How about that? And then
That's great.
you went 5-1. The only one you missed was Georgia because you thought Georgia would roll over them.
I did.
Yeah,
And I was kind of upset when I saw the score. I'm like, oh, Georgia Tech is really trying to hang in there. What's going wrong?
so
My goodness.
that's the only one. Everything else we got right, and then that was good. So yeah, 11-1 on our picks last week. So we'll see what we're going to do here championship week real fast. All right.
Okay,
We'll try to do this and then we'll get on out of here. New Mexico State is hosting Liberty in the Conference USA Championship game. Liberty is a 10-point favorite. By the way, the 24th ranked Liberty football team.
Okay, yeah. I like Liberty.
Yeah.
I'm taking Liberty.
Yeah, but is New Mexico State, are they the ones that beat Auburn?
Yes, they did. And they beat them pretty soundly.
Yeah, so.
And speaking of Auburn, I mean, the football guys tried to give you the game. The football guys was like, you know what? Let's do these guys a favor. Let's give them the game. Bad snap. It goes back. It is fourth in about 21. No way Alabama's going to win this game, right? No way. You only rush 2.
What are you doing, rushing 2?
Why are you rushing only 2 guys?
I'm bringing a blitz. I'm bringing a blitz up the middle and knocking the quarterback off his spot and saying, okay, you go run the ball for 31 yards. Because if you have enough guys back, you got 6 guys back, he shouldn't be running for 31 yards.
I'm sorry. It was probably like, was it 4th and 31 or am I?
It was 4th and 31.
Okay, my bad. I didn't say. Still, 4th and it could be a 4th and 15, but 4 and 31, and you're only rushing 2 guys. So you're telling your DBs, we want you to plaster for about 15 seconds. We want, like anybody who ever played John Madden will understand that in that situation that you are bringing, you're not bringing the house, but you're definitely making that quarterback throw that ball quickly.
You're making him run. You're getting him off the spot.
Yeah, let him run. Who cares? But that dude sat back. He gave the football a full body massage, and then he threw it for a touchdown. I mean, he was back there just patting the ball, massaging the ball, and the guy just broke open. And everybody's like, what was that DB thinking? It wasn't the DB's fault. That's a long time to be covering a guy. That's a long time. You're asking me to cover this guy for 20 seconds? I can't possibly do that when I'm not in his head and I don't know what he's doing. They gave him so much time to throw the ball. Everybody on the Auburn staff on defense at least should get fired.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so we both got Liberty covered in that one,
yes.
minus the 10. All right, so later that night, the Friday night, Pac-12 championship game, 8 o'clock ABC. Oregon's a 9.5-point favorite over Washington. Yeah, Oregon is a 9.5-point favorite over Washington.
Really? That game was really close the first time, right?
Yeah, it was at Washington, and Washington won, I think, by 3 points.
Give me Washington.
Give you Washington to cover, right? Not saying
yes.
straight up.
No, not straight up.
Yeah.
To cover, yes.
Yes. Nobody's playing better than Oregon right now in the country. I Bleav that.
Well.
I think Oregon's –
I didn't know they had the kid from South Carolina. He's there.
Yeah.
He played pretty well.
Yeah.
The other day. So.
They're playing really well. Bo Nix is probably playing better than anybody. This game, the winner of this game, probably the quarterback wins the Heisman Trophy.
No,
I think Oregon's going to win the game, but I think it's going to be a close one.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to give it to Oregon because I like their defense better, even though Washington's defense has been playing better as of late. So I think both teams have improved as the season went on in their certain areas, and I think it's going to show in this game. I think it's going to be a classic, but give me Washington to cover on that 9.5. So give me Washington plus the 9.5. You also say Washington 9.5.
Come on over to this side, Will. Come on over.
All right, Saturday we got noon. We got on ABC in the Big 12 championship game, Oklahoma State versus Texas. Texas is a 14.5-point favorite.
Wow. Really? Huh. Give me Oklahoma State to cover the spread.
Okay. I'm going to go the other way. I think Texas beats the snot out of them. I really do. I'm gonna take Texas minus the 14.5.
I hear you, man.
All right.
I'm just going off feelings.
Hey, that's what I'm doing.
I'm almost like the kid that said, "Hey, who do you think gonna win? The one with the one with the blue." You know how they usually win. The kids that don't know anything about the sports, they just like the colors or the helmets, and they win. That's how I'm doing this time around.
So we got next up, we got Georgia versus Alabama, SEC championship game, 4 o'clock on CBS. Georgia's a 6-point favorite.
Ooh, I think I'm gonna take Georgia for the points.
Okay, so you're gonna take Georgia. I'm going to take Georgia too, minus the 6 here. I just think Georgia can shut down. Alabama's still not that great throwing the football, despite the 31-yard touchdown catch the other day. But I just think Georgia can make them one-dimensional more, and I like Georgia to win this game.
Yeah.
Even though Alabama's defense is playing great too, but I think Georgia's got the better overall team, and I think they'll win it.
I totally agree with you on that, Will.
The American Athletic Championship, SMU 10-2 versus Tulane 11-1. The Green Wave, the game's going to be at 4 o'clock on ABC. The Green Wave is a 4-point favorite. What do you think on this one?
I like the Green Wave. They're a good team. They really are. I like them, and I'm going to go with those guys. And I hope they wear that blue, the all blue, the little baby blue that they have. That's an amazing look on them.
Didn't they beat Southern Cal in the Cotton Bowl last year, right? And so they were 13-1 last year, or 14-1, whatever it is, 13-1. Mm-hmm. And then this year they're 11-1. You do the math. That's got to be one of the 2 best records in the country the last couple of years. I mean, they're winning 24 games or something. I'm with you. I think Tulane's been there, done that. They've played in these games. I'm going to go with the Green Wave also to cover that -4.5. That -4, excuse me. Michigan, number 2 Michigan against number 16 Iowa. The Big Ten championship game, probably the most boring game of all the games. Michigan is a 23-point favorite, 8 o'clock on on Fox. What do you got going here, Michigan or Iowa?
I got Michigan. Even though Iowa really plays good defense, they cannot score points to save their lives. So I'm going to go with Michigan on this. I wish this game was a little bit better. It seems like they always play their championship when they play against Ohio State. So I'm just going to take Michigan. I just don't think Iowa has the horses to keep up.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think Iowa's just pitiful on offense. Their defense will hang. They'll keep them in the game for a little bit. Right. Michigan's got too many weapons. Michigan will eventually wear them down. Too many 3-and-outs for Iowa. Their defense will wear down. And so give me Michigan to cover the 23.5. They probably win this game like 28-3. I mean, that's kind of what I'm going to see here.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
All right, and then the game that's really big in the ACC. 8 o'clock kickoff on ABC. Louisville, who got upset somehow by Kentucky, and then Florida State. Florida State's 12-0. Louisville's 10-2. Florida State's a 2.5-point favorite. Keep in mind, Florida State has a backup quarterback. They struggled against Florida last week. Can Florida State win this game and get into and basically crawl into the college football playoff because of the Jordan Travis situation? Can you think, Levon, they can get it done and maybe get into that playoff as that number 4 seed?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a tough one. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Louisville. I just think the fact that they got a backup quarterback is not going to fare well. Louisville can really score points. I'm not sure what happened in the Kentucky game. I was disappointed because I thought Louisville would win that game. So I'm just gonna. I think they'll be ready. I think they're gonna. I think they're gonna win. I think the backup quarterback situation at Florida State. I feel bad for those guys because it's really hurt them as far as the playoff run is concerned. So I'm going to go Louisville on this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I've just said this once I saw Jordan Travis got hurt. I'm like, they're going to lose to Louisville. And it was obvious Louisville was looking ahead last week, and I just got a feeling that's going to happen, and that's going to allow probably an Alabama or Texas to sneak into the playoff. So we'll see. The playoffs are going to be announced here in a few minutes. They're going to be the college football Final Four or the 4 going into championship weekend. And it's going to be interesting how that all turns out because there's a lot of scenarios that could happen in the next couple of weeks. So we'll see how that works out. And Florida State loses, obviously they're done, and the ACC's done if that happens. Wow. And then where does Clemson fall in the bowl pecking order then? I don't know, but I will tell you this. Clemson, I know I think it's Lyndon Mickens was asking that Clemson should go play New York game and play Rutgers because that's on December 29th. Well, that's not going to happen because Clemson, that's a second-tier bowl game. Clemson's in the first tier of the ACC selection bowls. Clemson's not going to drop past the Gator Bowl. Like I said, it's just those bowl games that I mentioned earlier Clemson's going to have. And so if Louisville wins, then I don't know what happens with the bowl game situation. It could change things because it doesn't guarantee the ACC is going to have 2 teams in a New Year's Six bowl because one goes to the Orange Bowl, which would be Louisville as the ACC champion, but there's no guarantee after that.
Well, I mean, like you said, Will, I mean, these bowl games, I think sometimes we just want to put our team here or there. But a lot of times that's just not the way it works. A lot of times if this happens, then another team could go here or they go there. And Clemson is where it is, It's going to probably be most likely Holiday Bowl, Gator Bowl, are the bowl that used to be the Hall of Fame. What bowl is that? The third one we talked about?
So there's it's called the Williquist Bowl, what used to be the Hall of Fame Bowl.
Hall of Fame Bowl. Yes. So those are 3 I see.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I don't think Clemson goes to the Pop-Tart Bowl. They're not even being in the discussion, so that's not happening. That's the other bowl that's in the top tier.
Just be glad that the weather won't be cold.
Though I would love to go to the Pop-Tart Bowl because we would get Pop-Tarts. And I love Pop-Tarts, so that would be awesome to have that luxury. But that's not going to happen this year. So,
do you just get all kind of Pop-Tarts if you go to the Pop-Tart Bowl?
Yeah, the Cheez-It Bowl, we got like a couple boxes of Cheez-Its. Every day they had Cheez-Its for us at every press conference and stuff. I mean, we were loaded down with Cheez-Its, man. So now the Cheez-It Bowl's the Pop-Tart Bowl. So I'm assuming we'd have like those little tiny Pop-Tart bites, and then they give us Pop-Tarts like, to take home with us and stuff, That's what I'm assuming they probably have. So it'd be pretty cool. I wouldn't mind going to the Pop-Tart Bowl, but, we'll see. We'll see. So
that's funny. Yes.
Yeah. So with that, though, we're going to get on out of here. Appreciate you guys. Man. I know a lot of people are asking us about next year and the roster and stuff like that. Look, there's a lot of things that got to happen in the next couple of weeks. We're going to talk about that on another show, not on this show. Next week, we're going to talk about the bowl selection and who Clemson's playing and stuff like that. So just be patient with us. We will talk about those things, but obviously that's not for tonight or next week. So we'll wait till we see what everybody's going to be doing as far as this roster goes. So for Levon Kirkland, I'm Will Vandervort. We appreciate you guys joining us. We'll talk to you next week on Bleav in Clemson Football with Levon Kirkland.